Shalom, Israel. This is Judah J. Today's topic will be the second commandment. What are the graven images? The graven images that are being talked about in the Bible are the carved images of the pagan gods that surrounded ancient Israel. That's the most literal interpretation, but there are others. The second commandment should be seen as connected to the first. In fact, you can see how them together can help us see the bigger picture so that we can identify the things that became idols for us today. An idol, in its largest sense, is a false god, something that you worship and put in the place of Yah. In biblical times, the gods of the surrounding nations were carved into wood and stone, and so after the first commandment warns against having no other gods, the second commandment gives a bit more detail. You could paraphrase the first two commandments together as saying, don't give anything else priority and worship that is due to me alone. You see the other nations around you and their carved gods that they put in their homes and worship. That's not me. I'm the living God who brought you out of Egypt, not something that a person carved into stone. Don't do what they do. The third commandment can then be tacked on to complete the thought by saying, in essence, if you do start worshiping something other than me, you will have called yourself my people in vain. There's one other biblical reference for you to consider as you think about the commandment not to make a graven image. In Numbers 21, Yah actually commands Moses to make a carved image. In that case, Moses is told to make a bronze serpent and put it on a pole and have people come to it for healing if they are bitten by poisonous snakes. Moses makes the thing and people are indeed healed. But as time goes by, people start to think it is the bronze serpent itself that is healing them, rather than the God whose power stands behind it. By the time you get to 2 Kings 18, King Hezekiah has to destroy it because the Israelites had been burning incense to it. The carved image that God literally instructed Moses to make started out as a powerful tool for healing. It ended up becoming an idol and had to be destroyed. Our sole devotion is supposed to be to Father Yah. So when we put these things in the place of Yah, we are breaking his law and worshiping the thing rather than him. So now we can see how the first, second, and third commandments are tightly woven, connected, and support the main idea of the importance of having no other gods before Yah. But are these false gods only those which are created with our hands, such as images of prominent religious figures or deity references? Exodus 24 says, Thou shalt not make unto you any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water underneath the earth. What I noticed next was pretty alarming, because when it says we're not to make any likeness of anything in heaven above, in the earth beneath, or in the water, I began thinking of the pictures I used to draw of the holy angels, the cherubims, or even of Christ on the cross. It clearly says we can't do this, but this is something so readily accepted and even encouraged for young children to do, either in Sunday school or up until recent days, public school. We then come away with the notion that we're partaking in a practice that is in no ways wrong. But as the Bible tells us in Hosea 4:6, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So have we been cursing ourselves unknowingly for all these years by partaking in these seemingly harmless activities? The answer is yes. Like the golden snake Father Yah encouraged Moses to make and wrap around his staff, these images can become a source of worship. So we are to leave those things alone. We are to destroy and have nothing to do with them. You can see how people worship cross necklaces, kissing them to represent the death of Christ. But that act in itself is pagan and blasphemous because it's celebrating death when Christ is alive. It's also assigning power to an image when the sole power is in the Father Yah. Let's move on. Exodus 24 goes on to say that we aren't to make any images of the earth beneath, also for the purpose of not worshiping images. And likewise, when you do these things, you wind up taking the Father Yah's name in vain, claiming you're a child of his when you actually worship other gods. This also goes for making images of things on earth and in the things that are in the water under the earth. So is it lawful to make images of animals or creatures of the sea? This is extremely interesting to me, not only because these examples are of high noticeable use in the world today, but because I can see the sinister plot behind some of the satanic elite's plans as to have the population condemn themselves by participating in this practice of creating different kinds of worldly images, like the drawing of fish or other animals, then representing them as astrological signs made for witchcraft purposes. I've seen a picture of a fish lately that's supposed to represent Christ, but of course, this symbol is pagan and in no ways represents the Savior. So is it right for us to make images of our favorite animals and sea creatures? The answer is no. And I know that that's probably a position most people will think is taking it too far, but the rationale for why we should not be making these images, either from carving or drawing, etc., is actually justified by the way people have either subconsciously or consciously propped these images up as being sole instruments of power without acknowledging the power of Yah that it's supposed to represent. Have you seen non-Christians wearing crosses? Why would they put those symbols on their person if they don't have a connection with the one it's supposed to stand for? Strange. Lastly, Exodus 24 tells us not to make images of anything under the earth. Now, of course, we've seen how people glorify death, wearing images of skulls on their shirts, skull jewelry, skull tattoos, as well as tattoos and clothing that depicts what hell is supposed to look like. These things are secretly putting curses on people because they're not permitted by Yah, like so much of what we've been taught to believe is harmless in society. So why don't the wise ones in these world leadership positions that claim to be Christians tell the people that these acts disobey the very commandments they're supposed to adhere to, and much more? Why don't these Christian churches instruct their congregations from participating in these pagan practices that obviously go against the will of the Most High Yah? It's because an agenda has been sent out by Satan and collected by his officials that run this world to make all their laws purposely go against the laws of Yah. This is so they will continue to receive their power, authority, wealth, riches from him, and keep the masses in slavery, bondage, due to being under curses from the Most High Yah for breaking his commandments in ignorance. What a country we live in. What a world. Shalom.